Well, I'm joined now by the leader of the Scottish Conservatives, Ruth Davidson. Look, as with Kezia Dugdale, can we just briefly start with Manchester?
Sure.
Jeremy Corbyn's speech, which I was talking to Kezia Dugdale about, was described by Boris Johnson as absolutely monstrous. He said it was absolutely extraordinary and inexplicable in this week of all weeks that there should be any attempt to justify or to legitimate the actions of terrorism in this way. I mean, would you distance yourself from that on the grounds that you know, having a sensible, level-headed debate without that kind of language is arguably what we need at the moment?
Well, I think the ISIS said themselves what was behind this attack. They said themselves that Britain's foreign policy was secondary. They said themselves that it was an attack because this country is not a Muslim country and it's not a country of believers. Now, in terms of who perpetrated this, whose fault this is the coward that walked into the foyer of the Manchester Indoor Arena as streams of teenage girls were leaving and detonated a bomb. He is at fault for this. Now, of course, we can talk about foreign policy all we like, but to suggest that when such terror attacks have happened in countries like Belgium, have happened in countries like Sweden, who haven't shared the foreign policy of Britain...
But are you suggesting that
right.
Jeremy Corbyn is suggesting that? He would say he didn't mean that at all.
Well, I think if you read the text, and if you look at the very quote that you read out to Kezia Dugdale just a few moments ago, he is saying that it is part of the issue of why people are attacking us. Now, you know, we weren't involved in Afghanistan or Iraq before the 9/11 bombing. Sweden wasn't involved in these sorts of conflicts either, yet has still been subject to the same attack. This is about a death cult that hates our freedoms, it hates our democracy, and it hates the fact that we tell our young girls, do you know what? It's all right to go to a pop concert. It's all right to dream that you can be the woman on the stage. And the way that we beat them is by continuing to tell our young women that that's exactly what they can do. There's nothing to stop them.
Right. Independence, your #1 issue in this election, all over your leaflets. But in your manifesto, you introduced a new criterion for whether or not there could be another independence referendum. You said it would need public consent. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, it's not new. When Nicola Sturgeon said she was forcing through in March of this year this idea that she was going to weaponise Brexit to try and drag us back to another independence referendum, myself, the Secretary of State, the Prime Minister, all stood up and said exactly the same things. We said there's two principles here. One, Scotland cannot be dragged back to another independence referendum when we don't know what the options look like, because we don't know what Brexit looks like, we don't know what independence looks like, because Nicola Sturgeon won't even tell us whether she'd be in or out of the EU or EFTA or something else. Nor should we be dragged back there when the people of Scotland don't want it. And interestingly, I've got a bit of an ally on that, and that's Nicola Sturgeon, because before the 2016 election, before the 2016 election, I was standing next to her on a platform doing one of these television debates, and she said time and time again that if the people of Scotland didn't want a referendum, there wouldn't be one. If they hadn't changed their mind, she wouldn't have the right to call one, and the people of Scotland haven't changed their mind.
What counts as public consent? The SNP would say, look, we had it in our manifesto, we won the Scottish elections last year, the Scottish Parliament has voted for this. What are you saying? Are you saying the opinion polls have to go a different way or something?
Well, they had a conditional statement in their manifesto. They lost their majority. They also told the public that if there wasn't a change in public will for this, then they wouldn't drag us there. Also, we saw in 2011 what public consent looked like. We saw that there was broad agreement across all the political parties. Even people like Kezia Dugdale and myself recognised there was a mandate for an independent referendum.
But you're not seriously suggesting that the SNP don't have any legitimacy in arguing for another referendum unless you agree with them?
Gordon, the SNP are going to argue for another referendum till the cows come home. You ask them any question at all, and their answer is always
under
independence.
Normal democratic norms, they have a mandate for it.
No, I don't accept that they do. I don't accept when you lose your majority, when you have a conditional statement in your manifesto.
They won the election. The Scottish Parliament has voted for it.
When they promised the people of Scotland, not only did they sign an agreement that said, you know, we won't come back here, we will respect the result, and they're clearly not respecting the result, but they also said, Nicola Sturgeon looked the people of Scotland in the eye and said if there wasn't a change in public opinion, she wouldn't drag us back there. And she is dragging us back there, and I'm going to stop her. And people out there can help me stop her by voting for my party.
Let's say you achieved your dream and you were in a position to become First Minister. Let's say the Conservatives, the Scottish Conservatives, got the number of seats and MSPs that the SNP got last year, and you had something in your manifesto that you wanted to implement, and everyone else turned around and said, even though you've won almost an absolute, but not quite, majority, you've got no mandate for that, you'd be furious. You'd be the first person saying this is an attack on democracy.
And yet that happens in parliaments all the time, Gordon.
So attacks on democracy are OK because they happen a lot?
No, in that you've got to have a plurality of opinion across Scottish political, so there's got to be both political and public consent for this.
You said on this programme in July last year that if the Scottish Parliament voted for another referendum, then the UK government should not stand in its way. I have never said it should be denied. That's a direct quote. I didn't say it the last time either, meaning 2014. So why have you changed your mind?
Well, the Prime Minister, myself, the Secretary of State are saying exactly the same thing. This is about
what's exactly the same as I have never said that the UK Parliament, you meant, should deny the Scottish Parliament the right to have a vote.
The UK government, you just said, no, there's never going to be another referendum ever again. They didn't. They said there cannot be one when the people of Scotland do not know what the options look like, i.e. they don't know what Brexit looks like, they don't know what independence looks like, nor should there be one when the people of Scotland don't want one. And it is very clear, Gordon, the people of Scotland don't want one, and that's why you're seeing some of the panicked reactions this week from the SNP, because they're realising they started the campaign saying they're going to put independence at the heart of it. Now they're talking about it less and less because they know the people of Scotland are telling them, away, fix our schools, fix our hospitals, and stop dragging us back to a place we don't want to go.
You also say in the manifesto, and I accept this is not new, that there can't be another referendum until the Brexit process has played out, is the phrase that you used. What does that mean?
Well, until we know how it's working on the ground. So, of course, there's going to be a primary transfer of powers as we leave the European Union from Brussels to Westminster. But there's also then going to be a secondary transfer of powers to the devolved administrations and actually even to local authorities in England too. Right.
So has played out. Does it mean till we know what the final Brexit deal is, or does it mean for a period after that till we know how it's actually working out in practice?
This is in response to Nicola Sturgeon, who's promoting this, who the day after the Brexit vote stood up and said she'd already instructed civil servants to drop the necessary legislation for independence. We're saying, actually, we have to know what it is that we're voting on, because she wants to have already started the campaign. She wants her initial
will know by
was
2019.
To have it within 16 months' time.
But we will know that by 2019.
We'll know what the focus of the deal is, but we won't know how that compares to Scotland. We won't know the secondary transfer of powers. You know, I have to say, Gordon, you know, there's a lot of people out there who agree with me that we need to make sure that we get this right. And one way of not getting it right is having different nations within the United Kingdom pulling apart just at the point the country needs to pull together to get a good deal on Brexit.
Can you see the conditions that the Conservative Party, both UK-wide and in your Scottish manifesto, have laid down for another Scottish referendum being met before the next Scottish elections in 2021?
Gordon, I'm absolutely not going to advocate for this to be held within the next while. I'm not going to advocate for this to be held within the next generation, which is what the people of this country were promised.
No, but you've accepted that the SNP have some sort of mandate. You're saying you're not just saying no.
No, I say it's a weak mandate.
Well, what I'm asking you is, can you see the conditions you've laid down in your manifesto being met before 2021?
With the current trajectory of support in this country going down for another independence referendum, I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Right, so
because the people of Scotland don't want it.
Certainly
I'm
not
going to
before
stand up for them.
2021 and not for a good while afterwards.
Well, at the moment, with the trajectory that we've seen over the last few years, there is no support for another independence referendum. There doesn't look like there's going to be any support for another referendum. And as we see from Nicola Sturgeon trying quietly this week to ditch independence as a campaigning tool,
and of course your critics,
we're not going to see it anytime soon.
Your critics, not just the SNP, will say again you're tampering with democracy. What you're trying to do is put things off until after the next Scottish election in the hope that the SNP mandate runs out and they don't have a majority for their position.
Well, look, people know where the other parties stand. Nicola Sturgeon wants this come hell or high water. You've got a Labour Party where Jeremy Corbyn comes to Scotland and says he's absolutely fine with another independence referendum. You've just spoken to the Scottish Labour Party leader who's blocking deals in local government with the Tories so that she can prop up and put the SNP into power in town halls across the country, who says that it's absolutely fine for her MSPs to campaign for independence, her candidates. You know, in terms of if you want to stop this, help me. I'm telling people at home, help me stop this, because we can do it together.
I think, to be fair to Kezia Dugdale, she did sort of go back in that in the interview she's just done with me. But should Nicola Sturgeon be given a seat at the Brexit talks?
Well, I want there to be work put in from Scotland. That's why I've been helping facilitate people from across the country.
No, but she wants a seat in the talks.
Well, my problem with that, Gordon, is that Nicola Sturgeon wants Scotland to be out of the UK, but in Europe. So if she wants a seat at the table, I have to ask which side of the table she wants to be sat at, because she doesn't want the UK to exist, and she wants Scotland to be back in. OK, you have said you're open to a review of this so-called rape clause.
And you
How
face
it works on the ground.
Yes, and you've faced criticism for not actually calling for such a review to take place. So would you like to take the opportunity to rectify that and call for a review of how it operates in practice?
Well, I said we've got to look how it operates in practice. It's been in place for very few
You would
period
call
of
on
time.
Theresa May to institute such a review?
We haven't seen it work yet, because it's only just being brought in just now. But this is a system, and I think we've got to make clear to
people... So what does it mean to say you're open to a review?
Well, people have made certain criticisms of this, and let me address them, because this is a sensitive issue and I think it deserves the time spent on it. This is about making sure that people who've had children in the worst of circumstances get extra help. That's what it's there to do. So that there is a policy that's being brought in, that's in place, that says for the first 2 children you receive tax credits and thereafter you don't. So people who are within the benefit system face the same questions as people who are out with it. They're absolutely right to be exceptions to that, so children of multiple births, people who've had children but have been born of rape in this way. This is about getting them extra help. Now, the criticism has also been about how that's done. The system that was adopted by the DWP is the same system of having a third-party professional help fill out the form with the person, help do it for them, in the same ways we have used, and it has cross-party support for domestic violence victims as well. Now, if that can be improved, and people have suggested before it was even rolled out that it could, let's have a look at that. That's what I've said. So if we see that there are problems and complications once it's rolled out, that we can review how that happens, then I'm very open to that.
Why not just oppose the underlying policy of restricting benefits to 2 children? I mean, you're defying Theresa May on winter fuel payments. There are many, well-off pensioners who would say, why am I getting winter fuel payments when I can afford to heat myself? There's a much stronger argument for giving benefits to people having extra children, particularly given we have a declining population, or at least a declining population once you don't count immigration. I mean, it seems an anti-Tory policy.
Well, I think, to be fair, this isn't about child benefit. You get child benefit no matter how many children you have. You get the same child benefit your 10th child as you do for the first. This is about child tax credits.
Yes.
So this is about the same decisions for people who are...
Why not say that's wrong?
Well, because this is about making sure that we have a fair system. We knew that the benefits bill was getting out of control.
Why is it right to restrict tax credits to 2 children, but wrong to means test winter fuel benefits?
Well, Gordon, there are questions that you have to ask when you start a family, and your income doesn't automatically go up if you're in work if you have another child. And some of the questions that are being asked are the same for people who aren't in that situation. In terms of the choice I've made on devolution of winter fuel payments, if you want to speak about that, then this is about the envelope. Now, there is a decision that my colleagues have made down south.
Millionaires get winter fuel benefits, but poor people with more than 2 children don't get tax credits.
Well, this is about...
That's what you're saying.
No, the decision that my colleagues down south made is, at the moment, all people over a certain age have help with their heating and fuel allowance. They're going to means test that, and the money that's saved will be reinvested into social care. I'm choosing to say that within that envelope, and there's no extra investment in one side of the border or the other, to keep that with people who are over a certain age to have what they've always said that they wanted.
Running out of time.
Sorry, what they've always had before.
OK, income tax. You want the rates to be the same in Scotland as in England, rather than messing about with them, don't you?
I do, and there's a very simple reason for that.
So given there's no commitment to not raising income tax in the Tory manifesto, if the Tories do raise income tax, will you support a rise in income tax in Scotland?
There are no plans to raise income tax within the Conservative manifesto, nor are there plans to raise income tax.
It's not written out. It's not ruled out.
Well, saying that we've designated the sky as green is not written out either, but it's still not true. We're not planning
Tories
to raise...
pledging no new taxes is normal, and it's not there.
Look, we have cut income tax at certain bands. We've raised the threshold for the lowest earners. We have a situation right now where Scotland is a contracting economy that is 1/4 away from recession. The UK economy is growing. We shouldn't have higher taxes here because it's bad for the Scottish economy.
All right. Ruth Davidson, Luke, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. Well,